Sully, welcome to the Underground Society podcast, man. How are you?
Appreciate you having me. I'm doing well.
Kind of what first inspired you a few years before you actually started the Sully project was you seeing Liquid Stranger at eForest in 2017.
Yeah, the coolest hour of music I've ever experienced at a festival. It was just all different kinds of styles and like everything from like the most familiar sounds you've ever heard to the weirdest sounds you've ever heard.
Did you count Lost Lands and Wakan as part of your tour?
It's going to be a very intimate tour. We're doing some like really cool outside the box charity ideas. There's a whole nother deeper level of why I'm doing that. Throughout my adult life, I've struggled with balance. I've lost so many hours where I could have been reconnecting with a friend, but instead I was trapped in front of a computer screen trying to create music that I love. But that's a good thing. I get to express myself, play amazing shows, meet fans, create memories. However, a part of me feels unfulfilled because I forget to pause and appreciate the most fundamental things in my life. The digital underground represents the void in my life and the balance that I want to get better at controlling. It's expressed in every note, lyric, and sound that I put into the album.
Sully, welcome to the Underground Society podcast, man. How are you?
Appreciate you having me. I'm doing well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to have you here. I honestly didn't realize you started your project in 2019. I thought you'd been around for a lot longer, but dude, I have loved your music ever since. You're a wizard.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like that's something I get every now and then. People think I'm around longer than I have been. But yeah, I'm kind of a baby still.
Did you have a project before Sully? Or?
Like, not something serious. I had a college DJ project called Crowd Control. And I always tell people that was my project to figure out what not to do in this industry. I was playing a lot of college bars and I was working with promoters out here in the Midwest. And I was doing artist hospitality, talent buying, and stuff like that, and just learning.
Been there before.
I was learning how to produce in my dorm room and in my apartment and whatnot. And I wasn't really ready to be. I wasn't like trying to put my music out there yet. I wasn't sending it to artists that I looked up to because I knew it wasn't there yet. And yeah, it took me a while to find that what I always call the X factor. And I didn't really develop that until, at least in my opinion, I didn't start developing it. I think I'm always still developing that. But 2018, 2019 was like when I started finding it a little bit. So it just took me a while. Been at this shit for, 13 years. So
what did that feel like having, what you called the X factor like kicked in?
I don't know. People have asked me that question a lot. And I think it's just one of those scenarios like when you know. I was making so many songs. So I went to Icon Collective from 2017 to 2018. And that was my time when I was, I dumped the old college bar project. Obviously I wasn't doing anything with that. I wasn't releasing music to the public. I was just learning. And at that time, I was just trying to make as many songs as possible so I could figure out what I wanted to create. I made everything from a crappy 16-bar hip-hop loop to like some of the best songs I've ever written. Some of the songs that are coming out of my album, actually, I wrote the original demos for when I was at Icon.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I've held on to these ideas for so long because there was something special
about that you're finally going to be able to share with people, though,
too. They don't sound anything like they did when I started them. Like, they sounded like horrible back then, but they're definitely refined. But, I took a year after I graduated Icon, and then I took a year after Icon. I was working in studios and just making music every single day. And then one day I wrote Frequency Shift, my first song I ever put out. I showed everybody in my house. I had this, we had this producer house, we called it the producer dorms. It was like this long house with just rooms on each side. So we called it the dorms. And, I was with Peekaboo, Effin, Fetish, and a couple. And
oh, you were in that class?
Yeah, I was in that Icon
Sick.
class.
Yeah.
And I just showed them all and it felt special. That song felt like, yo, you figured it out. Like, this is really dope. And it's still like one of my biggest songs. It was my first song. And it's like, honestly, kind of, it's always like, it's a lot of pressure because every time I make a new song, I'm like, man, I got to make something as good as Frequency Shift.
Yeah.
But like, something was just on that, when I made it, like something was working at that time. Something was clicking. And like, I think that like set the tone for what I wanted my sound to be like.
Did you do a lot of like specific sound design like that was different for those songs and stuff that you kind of saved, or was there like certain like things that you always take now as like your signature sound?
There's things I still do and every single song still. The thing that I'm most known for is this technique called reverb throws. I think that's definitely like what people defined
your
my
signature,
thing.
yeah.
Like what is Sully's thing? That's definitely like one of the things. Beyond that, just like on the sound design level, I definitely like practice a lot of the same techniques. But really, it's just throwing paint at the wall a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from many producers.
Yeah, and what you'll hear like on this album is the whole thing is just a bunch of paint on the wall. It's like every single song is a different genre and style. And like even some of the songs change genres in the middle of the song, which is cool to me, you know?
Interesting. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, I read somewhere that kind of what first inspired you a few years before you actually started the Sully project to kind of start making that style of music was you seeing Liquid Stranger at eForest in 2017. Yeah. I like, what was that inspiration? Because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, Skrillex inspired me, or like different, you know, there's a lot of the same repetitive things with that. But I know in your experience, like getting inspired by Liquid and then also, you know, having so much support by them, being on their label now, going on tour with Liquid, you know, you're a part of the Wakan family. You've just played Wakan, you know, 3 years in a row. When the inspiration hit you, what was that experience
Yeah,
like?
I think so. I remember, I'll never forget that set. It was like that, you know, that was like the coolest hour of music I've ever experienced at a festival. So maybe still to this day. And I've seen a lot of sets.
Liquid's one of my favorites. So.
And I'm honored to like call him one of my closest friends now. And like, you know, he's one of my biggest fans too, which is crazy for me to even say.
Yeah,
like,
I saw him comment on a bunch of your Instagram stuff. Like he shows
wild
love all the time.
to think about. Like, I have so much love for that guy. But I think just like, you know, like when he gets on the mic and he's like, he calls himself a bass music missionary. And throughout that entire hour of music, it was just all different kinds of styles and like from everything from like the most familiar sounds you've ever heard to the weirdest sounds you've ever heard. And it was all in there. There was no rules, right? He's like, I'm going to play 4 house songs, and then I'm going to play some drum and bass, and then I'm going to play some halftime, and I'm going to play rhythm, and then I'm going to play like old school dubstep, and I'm going to play my Liquid Stranger classics. Like he does it all in this cohesive way. And I think that it's not like, you know, like you said, he's one of my biggest influences on just like the mindset towards music for me. I think that's like the biggest thing that he's like,
he's big on, I think that's why he does such a good job with Wakan and why it's such a powerful brand and stuff like that is because he has a passion for truly putting other people on too.
Yeah, so. No, absolutely. And I've tried to do the same because, it's funny. We talked about this for a long time at Wakan Fest the other day. So like, you know, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in unless Martin was literally playing. Martin was playing my music before the Sully project was even launched, which is wild.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
damn.
My music got sent to him through a couple of different people, but G-Rex was one of that, like the main guy that like kind of introduced my music.
And you've done a lot of work with him.
I mean, Jake's one of my best friends. We were supposed to go get Thai food today, but he only lives like 10 minutes away from me, which is nice.
Where do you guys live?
We're in like the Detroit area. So I live in a suburb called Livonia, which is like 15 minutes outside of downtown Detroit. Jake lives in a neighboring city called Canton. And then Peekaboo lives in Birmingham, which is like...
Damn, all you guys are there.
Yeah, like, I mean, those are my 2 closest friends in the world. And it's awesome to have them close to make music with. On top of that, Dion Timmer, who is another guy I was going to mention. Dion actually sent my music to Martin way back. Dion lives in Ann Arbor, which is about 20 minutes away from me. So we're all like kind of
super close.
You know, we're all super, super close.
I didn't know there was another pocket like in Detroit area. I know the Denver pocket, and I know like some other areas, LA, obviously.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
kind
didn't
of
know there was
slept
a
on.
Detroit pocket.
The Michigan pocket. There's like a bunch of other really good talented producers in Detroit too. Super Future, Detra, who's on my album release party this Friday. Gardella, Recno lives here. So we have a good producer musician community just in our, you know, niche of bass music alone here in Detroit.
That's dope. How did Wakan go this year? I know you said it was your 3rd year. What was your favorite year so far?
Man, it's tough. They were all so special. Like the first,
the first year you played was like the year you launched your project.
That was my first set.
Yeah,
it was my first
that's crazy.
set. Like, I mean, and I don't think it's tough to beat that first year. You know, like it's like I'll never forget. I played the very first set of Wakan ever. I'm sitting there.
Damn.
There's like, maybe when I start the music, there's like 100 people there tops. By the end of my set, the whole pre-party thing is full, and I'm just like, what is happening right now?
What is life? Yeah.
And like, thankfully, I was pretty comfortable with DJing at that time, just because I had DJed hundreds of times in college. You have to remember, like, I quit DJing in college in 2017, right? Like, and so this was almost,
you didn't play any at
2
all.
years later. Yeah, 2 years later, I didn't play a show until then. So like having that gap, I apologize. You know what? It was actually my second set. I forgot I had another show earlier that spring. I did play one other time that spring, but like first festival set, like first time playing in front of like a large crowd like that was like,
being that a festival set was your second set.
Yeah,
that's still
and it was
crazy.
like curated. It was curated too. It was like there was no mistake on why people were there. They were there they were down with the music. They knew they do their homework on who's on the lineup. They appreciate that music. So,
dude, that's what's dope about Wakan is like people actually like, it might not be like crazy huge artists, but even the underground people, there's mad love for, because like the people actually do their freaking homework.
Yeah. No, from when the gates open every day until like 5 a.m. when all the sets end at the after party, there's energy, there's people there, people showing love. Apart from the heat being like
so
absolutely
cool.
Exhausting up there on the mountain, it's like,
yeah, how hot was
dude,
it?
It was 90 degrees during my set. I had the hottest set of the weekend, probably. It was I played at like 4:45. So it was right at that peak heat. The sun's just blaring in my eyes. I'm still like, you can kind of see it. I'm like still pink on my cheeks and whatnot. And it's like,
I know you played Lost Lands the weekend before. I was actually at Lost Lands. What was that?
That was like the most
comparatively.
I mean, they're two different beasts, right?
That's
they're
true,
two different beasts.
Did you create a different set for two different?
They were
two different
similar.
places.
They were similar but different. My Lost Lands set was heavier.
That's what I would have expected.
It's interesting saying that, right? Because I'm on my tour, right? I'm on the Digital Underground tour. So like, I'm trying to showcase my album and what we'll get into. I have a VIP album, so I'm trying to showcase as much originality as possible. So like a lot of the times, the sets there's a lot of overlap and similarities because it's how I'm trying to present the art. I want to give the Lost Lands crowd a pretty similar experience to what they would get on tour, because I don't know if they're going to be able to see me on tour. So it's definitely like I have a set list of, I don't know, X amount of songs, right? Like, and they're just all different kinds of songs that I would want to play, and then depending on the vibe, that's how I navigate the set. Especially with an album tour, it's like I want to like give a curated experience for the most part.
Yeah.
And
did you count Lost Lands and Wakan as part of your tour?
Yeah, those were technically like
cool, yeah.
So I had one stop in Indianapolis at the very beginning of the month. That was technically, it wasn't even a part of the tour originally. We just rolled it into it. And then I played 4 festivals. I had Moonwalk Festival, Woodkey, Lost Lands, and Wakan Fest. And now...
So now like the actual tour.
Yeah, the tour starts this week, tomorrow in Virginia. So, yeah.
Very nice. Is it bus tour? Or
No. Just to fly in. Yeah, just flying into all the dates. So,
who's all your support?
Just me. Just me. Mostly, like, there's a few dates we're bringing people out, like Washington, D.C. I'm bringing Revlo out. And
I love Revlo. He's been on the show
Columbus, too. Which hasn't been announced yet, which will probably, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be announced. But
cool. This comes out in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it'll be, the show will be announced by then. Super Futures on that one. We have, what else? We'll have my album release show on Friday. We have Detra coming out. So we have like, there's select dates with like selected support, but in like specific stuff. But it's pretty, it's pretty here and there for the most part. Mhm.
What can we expect from this tour? Are you touring with your own production and stuff, or is it
Yeah,
just
I mean, like all my own visuals, and and the set is I mean, you can expect to hear not the whole album isn't meant to be played live. Some of it is just headspace music,
very similar to like Ravenscoon's last album? Like some of it he plays live, and then some of it just like
Yeah,
very much
I
just
don't
listening
think
music. Yeah,
like I don't want to be. I'm thinking kind of like longevity here too, and looking back on it, like I just like I have a song that's in 3/4, and it's the interlude track, and it's just like a bunch of like granular melodic soundscapes, and it has a drop, but it's not really like I don't know if I would want to play it. Like maybe in a specific set, like let's say I was playing Red Rocks or something like that, where like the lights are down and we could create a moment for it. I would maybe do that, but like I'm trying to curate to the event too, I'm trying to also like curate, which isn't, like I think if you ask somebody else, they could have a completely different opinion on it. Like it's like, oh, it's your album tour, you should play all 11 songs, right? It's like, well, maybe, but like I play like 9 of the 11. I would say like 2 of the songs are just more,
and especially if one's like an interlude or just just more listener.
They're like
yeah,
they're
That
there
makes
for the
sense.
songwriting purpose, and like they check off a box for me on the album, but they're more like headspace tracks, and I just never really imagined them being like DJing songs, like club songs. I don't know. So, but on the flip side of that, so what I did was I made VIPs to all 11 songs. So I'm still like wrapping up the fine touches on a few of them, but those VIP versions are the polar opposites of all these songs on the albums, right? So it's like the weird and heavy versions
party,
of all
yeah.
of these songs. And a lot of the songs on the normal album I play out. Like I said, I still play 8 of the 11. So they're still like, I still pull, like they're still, they go. Like they go. But imagine that, but heavier and weirder, like, so I have alternate versions of all of these songs.
I know Excision and Liquid, they're back to back at Lost Lands. They played like 2 or 3
Yeah,
of them,
they
right?
played
That
3
were
of the
VIPs for me?
VIPs. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
it was crazy.
That set was
Yeah,
insane.
and then I didn't know this, but 2 songs later they played another one. Yeah,
Wow,
they played the Master Plan VIP, the collaborative
Nice.
Master Plan.
See, Liquid's still just pushing your shit
Yeah,
out
man.
there.
Well, Excision showed me mad love at Lost Lands too. He played quite a few tracks too,
That's awesome.
which was awesome.
During his 2-hour set, I was going to say I heard a couple.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think
of
he
your
played
tracks.
2 or 3. So, and he got the fireworks show for front to back, which was always awesome. So, yeah, couldn't believe it.
Going back to tour, what are some other things, I guess, that we can anticipate other than the music that you're playing and stuff like that? Are you doing anything special and to try and like stand out from other people who are touring, or what can like the fans expect from if they're going to go out and see one of your shows?
Yeah, I mean, I would just expect a really personal experience. Like we're doing a few things that I think are really cool, and
what size rooms are you
mostly
playing?
like 250 to 400 caps. There's like a couple of bigger ones,
cool.
right? But it's going to be a very intimate tour. It's my first tour, I want to make sure promoters win. I got to go win over crowds. Like I don't have any business going and playing 1,000 cap rooms right now where the promoters aren't going to win. Like I want the promoters to make money, and I want the fans to have that experience and like be like, oh my gosh, I saw Sully in Portland, Maine, and and I'm just like throwing random numbers out there for the example's sake, but like, let's say there's only 75 people there. It's like, I saw Sully when there was only 75 people in Portland, Maine, like, and now he's playing 1,000 cap room and whatever, and or he's playing, he's playing 4 p.m. at Wampy Woods. It's like, I saw him at this time, like, I think that personal experience is super important. And on top of that, we're doing some like really cool outside the box, like charity ideas. So Friday, I organized oh my God, I can't talk. A canned food drive.
Oh, I saw your post for that. Yeah, you posted like
so
yesterday.
we're doing like
Yep.
a canned food drive from 8 to 9. So doors are at 8 until 9 p.m.
That's super cool.
And Grand Rapids.
What gave you that idea?
Well, Grand Rapids is where I came up, man. And I wanted to just give back. The whole idea just stems from my inspiration behind it. It comes from Grizz. Just him being a Michigan guy and how many good causes that he's done over the years in Michigan, I just think is super admirable. And I've always told myself, like, he always does Christmas, for example, and like donates so much money to I forget what the name of the organization is called, but it's like a music education, 6 Mile Music, I think it is what it is, or 7 Mile Music. And I've just always admired that, like, doing things that are bigger than yourself. And it's like one of those things where, like, let's say I never get to tour again, right? Then I get to say I at least, you know, hey, I pulled a bunch of fans together and we raised like $400 in canned food, you know, that would be awesome to say. It's like, okay, like I made my mark in Grand Rapids.
I love when artists do things for like charitable causes, or like do things for like the community, or do things like Ellis Dream, like for another example of kind of slightly not doing a food donation, but like his message at the end of his set at Lost Lands, like stuff like that, where it's like motivational, or like giving back to the community, or like actually showing that you care about your fans. Like, so sick.
And I mean, another thing we're doing it like tomorrow in Richmond, and I'll probably do this a bunch more times during the tour, because I think it's like, there's this process. Again, this goes on the notion of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this again, right? It's like once you get bigger, everything, like there's bigger rooms and things become more chaotic. While it's small, you know, like tomorrow in Richmond, I printed out 50 posters, and I said, and I made a little post. I'm like, first 50 people through the door get a free meet and greet and a signed poster from me. So I'm just going to be sitting up at the front at a table.
Such a good idea too, to build a relationship with your fans.
Exactly. It's like
they're the ones that are there early, the ones that are showing up and to support you, you know, first. Like, that's so cool that you're directly giving back to them.
I want to, you know, like I really want to, because it's like,
and way to go for like not having a huge tour, but like having the mindset of like, I can still make the most out of it, and I can do things that are a little different.
I don't think people are doing like the whole concert poster thing and like large mass meet and greets like that. And it's like, there's like two sides of the coin, right? Like there's one approach that's like, I need to be this mysterious figure that's behind in the green room you don't meet at all.
Marshmallow.
And it's like, well, even if there's not a mask, it's just like
people are still like
it's
that.
It's like you want what you can't have type of thing. And I think that works. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it works
to a point though. Like I've been around that. I used to be, you know, a stagehand early on in my career, and during that time I would meet people that were kind of like that, and then other people who were super outgoing and wanted to meet the people backstage, but then they were just like, they asked for their own private room. They like didn't even talk to the staff. I was like, dude, why? Like, at least talk to us. Like, we're helping you put on the show. Like,
yeah. I think it just boils down to like my DNA, right? It's like, I want to meet people. I'm like outgoing. This term that I've always like kind of fallen back on is like turning your fans into family. And I think like, you know, I think I've got my first 1,000 fans, thankfully, but like there's always that like classic saying, like your first 1,000 like diehard fans are going to be like the people that spend the most on your merch. They're going to be the most that they're going to go to every show until you're done.
That's all you need too. If you can get 1,000 people to spend $100 a year, you're making good money.
Right. And it's like, it's not all about that, but it's just like, I think
but yeah, from a business standpoint,
I want this to be a prolonged thing, right? It's like, I think I at least owe them the courtesy of meeting them, giving them a token of my gratitude by just signing a poster and saying hello. It's like, it's the least I can do.
Thank you for listening to my music. Thanks for showing up to my show.
You know, like at some point, while we're in a 250 cap room, it's the first 50 people through the door. It's going to be a lot of like 30-second.
That's a good percentage.
It's going to be a lot of like 2-minute conversations, of course, and it's going to feel like a lot at the end of the night. But it's a lot easier to do it now than when I'm playing 1,000 cap rooms, and it's like virtually impossible to do something like that. You know, and I just, you know, like the fans that are there early, like I want to reward them for that and like thank them for that. And, you know, because I think those are the fans that are going to stand by you the rest of your career. So that's the whole motive behind it. That's what we're doing this week. So we're doing the canned food drive on Friday, and then we're doing the poster meet and greet tomorrow. Just like these little fan interactions, these things that don't cost me a whole lot but I think apart from the music, that's like the biggest thing with this tour.
Absolutely. That's sick. I love that.
And we can get into like why I'm doing that too. There's a whole nother deeper level of why I'm doing that. Well, so my album, it's funny, I just typed this up because I'm putting a quote out about it tomorrow. I'm just going to read out the quote, actually, because I think this kind of sums it all up. So throughout my adult life, I've struggled with balance. I've lost so many hours where I could have been reconnecting with a friend, but instead I was trapped in front of a computer screen trying to create music that I love. But that's a good thing. I get to express myself, play amazing shows, meet fans, create memories. However, a part of me feels unfulfilled because I forget to pause and appreciate the most fundamental things in my life. The digital underground represents the void in my life and the balance that I want to get better at controlling. It's expressed in every note, lyric, and sound that I put into the album. So why am I doing these?
That's amazing. I can very much relate to that. So,
right.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, every single song that has lyrics is really, there's some songs that are like more of like an instrumental expression of that. But every single song has that intention on the album, especially the ones with the lyrics. I had a part in all the songwriting.
The lyricists that you've worked with too are all amazing vocalists.
Thank you.
Amazing
I got
vocalists.
very.
Yeah. Shout out Danny King. I know she just did a song with you, and that's how we got connected.
I mean,
but,
she nailed it. She nailed it. I mean, I gave her the theme.
A track with Virus too. That you've got a bunch of people on it. Yeah.
Virus song is about the same kind of like underlying theme. Like with Danny. I mean, I remember I read that kind of theme to her and like what I wanted. And apart from like small tweaks, like she nailed it because she could resonate with it. Right. You just said you could resonate it. I think a lot of us like industry folks and like creatives or just people in general, like we're so trapped behind this. We're so trapped behind this and like our computer screens and whatnot. And I'm so bad at it. Like, I'm horrible at it. I've just so many like good memories I could have been making where I'm just like, I'm worried about, how a show is doing or like how a post is doing, which is like so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like, but we can't help but get caught up in it. It's like we can't help but.
Those are the things that you have to almost like learn how to be disciplined with too. Or like you gotta like set boundaries for yourself. You have to be like, no, I told myself no last time. Like don't keep checking. Don't keep, worrying about all this shit. Like it's going to take care of itself over time. So just give it the time it needs.
And so like with this album and this tour, I'm hoping that this can become like the first step for me towards what you're like doing, what you're talking about, like letting go and like getting better at that control. And just letting the art be what it is. It's like the most authentic expression of myself ever. Just like songs that normally people would not hear from me at all.
We brought up the song with Virus Syndicate. I know there is kind of a special backstory with that too, because you guys were struggling with the collaboration until you guys finally met up at a show or ran into each other at a show. Can you tell me like the story there with that song?
Yeah, there's actually an awesome video. So Jay from Virus Syndicate posted on his Instagram. So anybody watching this who wants to go get the other extended version of the story, Virus Syndicate already posted about it a few weeks ago. But essentially what happened is a few years ago, they hit me up right around, it was like a little bit after I released Quake, which was my third song or fourth song I ever put out. Yeah, fourth song.
Big love in the beginning of your project. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was like, those songs were, those songs were awesome. They hit me up a little bit after that and they wanted to make something like Quake, but it was like one of those things where everything I tried, I just was like, this is way too similar, or it just didn't feel right.
It's hard to write. It's like I want to write something like that you've already written, but it's like your idea is kind of already out with that one song. It's like it's hard to follow up and like almost kind of recreate a song, and also it would be like so similar that it would be like hard to decipher for the audience. Maybe.
Yeah, 100%. So we went back and forth for probably like 6 months, and just it was one of those things where they weren't feeling the lyrics that they wrote, and I wasn't feeling the instrumental that I wrote, and I think it just naturally got shelved. Like we didn't even say like let's scrap this. Like it just we both stopped working on it. Ultimately, the ball was in my court, and I was like, guy, like this is, it doesn't feel good. Like, so then fast forward 2 years later, we kind of, like acknowledge each other on social media. We're still familiar with each other. Obviously fans of that. I've been fans of Virus Syndicate for so long and, they were fans of mine. So we kind of kept acknowledging each other on social media. That never really went away. And then out of nowhere, they played an after party for Subtronics in Detroit. And I was out that night supporting my buddy Detra, who was on the same bill. And I didn't even know Virus Syndicate was playing. I just went to the show. Yeah, like, and I was just in the green room and I'm like, wait, Jay, Nick, Virus Syndicate? And they were like, you're Sully. And I was like, yeah. And so we started talking. I started talking about the record and this whole theme that I just talked about. And like, we just had that like natural connection and like a stand, like, you know, like a really solid ground to stand on. And it just so happened that I had a instrumental that needed filling. It was originally going to be pitched to ASAP Ferg because the song started out as a Ned Flanders remix. And that just like, you know, after inquiries and like trying to figure that out, just like budget, time, all that, it just wasn't going to work. So it was like, okay, let's find new vocalists and whatnot. So and like fate had it, I met up with Virus Syndicate like literally that same week at the show. It was fate. I sent them the instrumental and they're like, dude, this is sick.
We got this.
First try, send me back vocals, no
So
edits,
sick.
everything was ready to go. All I had to do was like, I made like mixing the vocals and like creating like the effects in the vocals and stuff. But literally everything that they came up with was A1.
That's
Perfect.
awesome. What was the difference, do you think, once you, I mean, I guess meeting them in person, but was it hard to have maybe that conversation outside of being in person? Or like, what was it about being in person you think like really made that difference and what you guys were actually able to build that
That's a good
foundation as
question.
friends?
I think it was the fact that like when we saw each other there face to face, we were kind of like bummed that we still hadn't made a song together yet. Right? We were like, oh man, like we should talk about like why that last song didn't come together. And like we were both on the same page. We were all just like, yeah, it was crap. And then we like had a laugh about it, right? Like we're like, yeah, like beat I made was kind of shit. Like they weren't super psyched about the lyrics that they sent over. Like it was
Just kept hitting foul balls in a sense.
like we all did, and then we all just kind of had a laugh about it. And then I started talking about the record, right? And like what it meant. And then they just started naturally, like we just naturally vibed. Like they got it. Like, you know, they're both.
That based off that concept you guys talked about, they were probably able to create lyrics based off that concept. And then you already luckily had the instrumental that you were waiting to get someone on. So that's perfect.
100%. And they're guys, I think they can resonate with it a lot because they're both fathers. They've been in this industry for a long time.
Forever.
They've had their waves up and down all over the course of their career. Like they've seen it. They've seen what I've gone through and experienced it. So I think it was just really easy for them to like just be like, okay, I'm going to grab onto that topic and I'm going to run with it. And it was like, it was perfect. It was just clockwork. Every vocalist was just amazing on this album. Every single one.
That's awesome. Probably makes your job a little easier too.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it helps to have a theme. A lot of stuff in the bass music world, I feel like, or maybe, and I could be wrong about this. I could be talking about my ass, but like, I just don't know how much of theme is actually discussed before you go into writing a song, right? And it sounds so silly saying that.
In other genres, it's the backbone of the song, but in EDM, it's not quite like that.
See, and that's like the kind of the background I come from is like working in a band. I used to work in a studio. So a lot of the times it was like me working with a vocalist exclusively and trying to believe what they're like singing or rapping into a mic, right? It's like, you're rapping about going to the club and spending 10 grand, but I don't believe you. You know, like make me believe you. You know, that is like there's that whole level of like emotional intelligibility, I guess you can say, is like I want emotional intent. I want to believe every single word that you're saying. Like you can be like a vocalist could be pitchy, right? But if I believe every word they're saying, like give me all the
It
pitchy
doesn't
notes. I
matter
don't
as much,
care
right.
if you're out of tune. Like it's like I would rather take that take over a perfectly tuned, like kind of flat.
That doesn't have any emotion to
Yeah,
it.
a flat take.
Right.
So
Yeah. Interesting.
I think it's one of those things that I wouldn't know unless I worked with certain people that I've worked with and working in the studio. I have my just brief shout out to my buddy Nate Senzer. He helped out a lot with like the vocalists and stuff on this record, and like he's like ultimately like one of the main reasons like I understand these kinds of things. So shout out to Nate Senzer.
Being that we just talked about kind of that concept, and you seem like, obviously you're an Icon grad as well. Something that I saw that you did at Wakan, I think it was maybe the first live one, the Pointers for Producers. First of all, what is that? And when did you realize that you were passionate about the education side of things?
So quarantine, right? A lot of us had to become,
like a lot of other producers.
A lot of us had to become flexible on how to generate income. Because the whole key to the music industry is, in my opinion, and being successful in it, is taking multiple sources of income from all different kinds of places. Diversify your income.
Just like any other entrepreneur, basically, is the same 100%.
Concept. So during quarantine, there came a point where I moved into this house. There was other external things going on where I had to generate income, and I needed to generate it fast. So I started tutoring, and I started loving it. So my manager, which is Loper, who runs Wakan, obviously found out about that because he's like, how are you making money right now? Like, like how are you going to stay afloat? Do you need to go get a day job? Like that kind of thing. And I was like, I'm actually doing okay by tutoring. And so when Wakan Fest rolled around in 2022, Chloe and Loper asked me if I would want to do a producer panel where I would host other producers to come and talk about certain topics related to production, to where, there's a bunch of aspiring producers out in the crowd at Wakan that want to be in the shoes that we're in, right? So let's give them a small taste of that, right? Like let's create a panel to where they can ask questions and whatnot. So last year I hosted Ahi, who is known for his YouTube tutorials and his Ableton racks and being like an educational source.
Ahi.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Genius
and
producer,
he's a really good guy too. So I had him last year, and I had Subdocta, and they were two different panels. Ahi was more of like Q&A, science, like kind of like mathematic based, like experimentation and explanation of music, and Subdocta was more like, hey, I'm going to show you how I made this remix, right? So he broke down a remix project file and then did a Q&A. Two completely different topics. This year, I had Turny and Sound and Peekaboo. So they make similar styles of music, but Peekaboo busted open a project file, and then Turny and Sound just did straight Q&A. So again, we had two different styles. So then maybe next year, if I do it again, which I think we will, because the leap in growth was immense. Like we had probably twice the amount of people
Congrats.
This year.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. Maybe it all depends on who's on the lineup, but maybe we get Cone Sound next year, and
dude, that would
I
be
tried
wild.
to get them this year, but they weren't available, unfortunately, because of travel. Travel.
They're almost more like producers, but holy shit.
Yeah, I mean that would have been a
their
dream come true
insane.
for me. I would I'd subscribe to their Patreon. Like I was really hoping we could have got them, but so we get Cone Sound next year, and I don't know, we get Kiva or something. Kiva can talk about how she does vocals on tracks, like giving different topics that would draw in a different audience, so it's not the same thing every year, and it's something that a lot of producers can look forward to.
Yeah, and that's I have that same kind of ideology behind this show. Is why I have I have influencers on, I have different industry people on, I have vocalists, producers, all that kind of stuff. I think it's important to learn from all of the different angles, because it does attract the different people into what you got going on. So, are you still doing individual? Do you have a Patreon? Or
I have a Patreon.
Anything?
Yeah,
okay.
I have a Patreon. Right now, I'm not doing the individual tutoring, just because it's just
with touring.
I just don't have the time for it. But I have a Patreon, and it's just patreon.com/official Sully Music. I'm uploading to that regularly. We have about 80 members. And it's, I don't hold anything back on that. Like, you can literally see how I made every little step of every song that I've made. Like, I've uploaded track breakdowns to most songs that I've made on that Patreon. So,
is there album stuff on there too?
Not yet. That's what this fall is for. Yep. So I'm doing a very cool thing for my Patreon where I'm uploading all the stems to my Patreon. and you will be able to remix all the key stems. Like I don't want to upload them in a way to where somebody could like download them and just upload the same exact song. But you know, you'll get the kick sample, you'll get the snare, you'll get the hi-hat rhythm, you'll get the bass stab, you'll get the vocals, you'll get staple things in the songs so that you can remix them. And then I'm going to hold a massive producer giveaway on all social media platforms where if you remix a song, I'm going to pick a winner, and more to come on that. Yeah, but big old prizes for that.
Very cool. Very cool. What would you say being in the education side of things is like one of your main topics that you try and, spread through all of your lessons to people?
It honestly depends on where they're at, right? Because like I think if I'm tutoring somebody that's been at it for like 7 or 8 years, right? I don't need to tell them like that advice is going to be a lot different from somebody that's just starting out. So like if somebody's just starting out, it's going to be more along the lines of, hey, create something new every single day. Like don't get hung up on making it sound like a Skrillex song, because you're not going to be there. You have to walk before you can run, right? But once they've learned how to run and they're like, because I've tutored
little tweaks here and there, navigation stuff.
Yeah. Like for example, I tutored Tate B before he like started releasing music.
Genius now too.
Yeah, I mean but it wasn't like, but my tutoring session with him was very different. He showed me a few songs, and it was more along the lines of, hey man, I think you should just have some confidence in yourself and like release your music. And I gave him a few arrangement suggestions, but overall, my token of advice to him was, hey dude, you're ready for this.
You're ready. Yeah.
Like you're ready for this. Like your music is awesome. And then, fast forward a few months later, he releases his Gold Dust Flip, and I'm just like, boop, like this dude's awesome. Like, and now we have a song, and it was less of a question of like, hey, like, this is what you should be doing, and like, hey man, like we should make a song together. Like, it became like a very friendly relationship. And then like if you've been producing for a while and like you have the X factor, right? Like that there's a good explanation of it. Like Tate B, in my opinion, right when I met with him, he had this X factor to him, and I was like, you got it, dude. And I think my advice to those kinds of producers that I mentor is like, kind of like it goes back to what we're talking about. Remember to take breaks and remember to like gather inspiration in the world. Like, I think that's where I'm at in my, like, I'm not going to make a bunch of music this fall. I'm going to just enjoy this tour and like gather a bunch of inspiration and figure out what I want to make next quarter, like figure out what the next wave of the Sully sounds like. I have music for like the next year covered. So like, it's like, I don't need to like make 20 new songs, or I want to, but I also think it'd be healthier for me to just gather inspiration and like do things that I haven't done or done a very good job at, which is just enjoy life. So.
Absolutely. One thing that I wanted to bring up before we kind of wrap up, because we are kind of getting to time, but before we wrap up, the premise of the show is discovering kind of the challenges of each guest and what they've gone through specifically throughout their journey of, building their career. Throughout your journey, what do you think has been like your biggest challenge, and how have you overcome that?
I mean, I think it's more of a personal battle more than anything. I think a lot of, almost personal adversity. So throughout my entire discography, I've made all different kinds of genres and styles, and sounds, and there's really not one song like with a recycled idea. And I think this album is like the big statement of that fear and like me letting go of that, and like taking a risk. Like,
were you just like afraid of like judgment?
Yeah, I think so. Like I think a lot of people. I think that's like one of our fundamental fears in life is like just the fear of being judged. Like I have a pop song on this album that I did with my cousin. Featuring Sarah McTaggart, but my cousin plays a lot of the guitars on it. It's like pop meets psychedelic rock meets neuro bass, and it's all kind of like
I'm excited to hear that.
Into one package. It's called Impossible, and it's like this kind of risky song. Like I think about that song every day, and it feels like the risky song on my album, where I just think like, I don't know, like how fans like when at first, like I don't know how fans that really liked frequency shift, for example, and like some of those like really experimental tracks in my beginning days, how they're going to feel about it, you know? How are they going to feel about it? And it's like, oh man, is he like selling out or something like that? And it's like, no, it's not that at all. It's just that I love making everything. And like this song makes me happy.
Well, have you heard Black Sheep, Focus, and Sippy's new song?
I haven't heard it yet.
All three of those boys are freaking bass music artists, and they made like a house song just because they wanted to. And I was like, it's so dope, and it's good too.
And I love and appreciate that so much. And I think the time to do it is an album. Like I could just keep making songs that are like experimental bass and like sound system music, right? But that's not all I love to create.
If you like making other stuff, you shouldn't force yourself into just making one specific thing. Yeah.
It's like this struggle of telling a story, being true to who you are, and putting out music that you really love, right? And like, but then also like trying to appease your fans. And like,
yes.
I do want to appease my fans, but at the same time, they're not the most important people in this scenario. I am when it comes to creating art. So
at the end of the day, I forget who told me this, but at the end of the day, you have to like make sure that you like what you're making, and then you just put it out in the world. Some stuff's going to do better, some stuff's not going to do as good, but as long as you like it and you're comfortable and confident with it, like that's all that really truly matters. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we are getting time, and I do have a couple wrap-up questions, but where kind of, other than the tour and the album that we've been talking about for the last hour, is there anything past that you're kind of excited about, maybe in life or, in your own personal journey?
Man, this is like the beginning of like the next wave for me. So this is huge. This is definitely like the most monumental moment in my career and in my life. So I mean, what
does it feel like being in that situation and being in that moment right now?
I mean, it's like everything that you dream of when you start making music, right? It's like, that's what it feels like. It's like when I picked up a copy of Ableton for the first time when I was 15, like this is like that moment that I'm like dreaming towards, like when I was 8 years old, before I got my first drum set, just banging on pillows in my basement. Like this is like the kind of moment that I've been waiting for. So I think like this is that moment for me. And like I said, I'm just going to try and enjoy it. But past that, I'm hoping that I can buy a house. That's like the next thing I'm looking forward to in life is just like finding.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm 26. I just turned 26 at Lawson.
No, nice. Nice.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of in my next. I'm like, by 30, like I hope to God I'm in the position to where like I want to buy a house so bad.
It's tough because the market's insane. We don't have to get on all.
Yeah, and I live in California, so prices are fucking stupid.
That's
out
why
here.
I moved back to Michigan from California.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, last final question, again, more of a personal question, but I ask this at the end of every single interview to every guest. When you first picked up a DAW, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself during that time, what would you tell yourself?
What I tell my mentees now, and it's to create something new every day and don't worry about what it sounds like. You'll get to the end.
Why is that?
You'll get to the end product a lot faster if you go through multiple repetitions. Think about going to the gym. You're not going to bench press 200 pounds in the first day. You're going to bench press, if you start at 85 pounds, like the bar or whatever, you're going to bench press 200 pounds in a couple of years. After you go to the gym every day and you do those repetitions. It's just with anything in life, it takes practice. And it doesn't matter if you do if you do one set or if you do, and like if we're talking in comparison to music, like if one rep is one note, right? Get 10 reps in, like just keep going. Like it's all about how many hours you put in and how many repetitions you get of starting something and finishing something. And then things will start to click.
What a lot of experienced people would call that too is like paying your dues in a sense too. Yeah.
Be okay with the process. Yeah. It's like,
absolutely. Fall in love with the process.
It's only going to be worse if you just compare your process to somebody else's. It's just, it's going to slow you down. Just have fun with it. And I know that sounds cliche, but like, don't have this expectation of what you're supposed to create. Just do it. Be brainless.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
Man. Awesome thank you so much. This has been great. I really appreciate the talk today.